Check, check. All right, are we live? Hey, Coach, if you are in the VIP room, in the Zoom room, go ahead and chat. You definitely can't hear me yet. There we go. Let's turn that on. Let's turn that on. Okay. Coach is in Zoom. Can you guys hear? You guys have audio? You guys have video? Coach is on YouTube. We just went live. If you guys could just let me know in the chat that you can also hear. And we're going to give everyone a couple minutes to show up, and we're going to get started here in just a couple minutes. All right, here we go. Okay, awesome. Kaylin, can you hear me in the Zoom?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, awesome. Okay, let's go ahead. There we go. Pen, here we go. Awesome. All right. So, day 2 of the Princeton Offense Challenge. So yesterday, before we get started, you guys are coming in. Again, in the chat, let me know if you were here yesterday or not. Let me know if you guys caught day 1, if you were able to watch the replay. It's still on the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, you can go to Hoops in Detail in YouTube, and you can find it there. What were your biggest takeaways from the challenge yesterday from day 1? What were your biggest takeaways when we were talking strategy, talking style, talking tempo? What were your biggest takeaways from day 1? If you guys let me know in the chat what your thoughts were on yesterday, give me a little bit of feedback, and then we'll get started on day 2 here in just a couple minutes. Here we go. All right, everyone's starting to pile in on YouTube now. Very good. Okay, so let those start coming in the chat. I'll kind of come back to them as I see them pop in there. If you're VIP, hang on to the very end of this, and we're going to go live. We went live for about an hour afterwards with the VIP, had a lot of good discussions. Today we're going to be a little bit more strategic in the VIP session, actually breaking down, going a little bit deeper with the X's and O's. But today's going to be a big X and O day, and there's a lot with the X's and O's, and we're going to be going through. Going through it very quickly, so that we can get a really broad view of what's going on with the Princeton Offense X's and O's. So this is day 2. Let's go ahead and pop up here. See, Coach from Bell City was here last night. You love how you describe what's best to run according to your personnel. Yeah, one of the big things about the Princeton offense is Coach said, well, you have to have a certain kind of personnel to run it. Well, as we're going to talk about today, the Princeton offense, and we talked about this yesterday a little bit, it's basically 4 offenses in one. We're going to really get into the detail about that today so you guys can get a really good look at that. So day 2 of the challenge, I'm thinking about it this way. This is the challenge where you're going to be choosing your offensive weapons. Okay, we have our players, but now we're going to choose our weapons. The X's and O's that you're going to go into battle with, you're going to execute your new competitive strategy that we talked about yesterday on day 1. Okay, so this is the challenge. If yesterday was the challenge where we are designing our strategy, where the smart take from the strong, all right, today what we're doing is we're going to take this, we're going to win with this superior strategy when we have talent that's good enough. So now we're going to take the X's and O's, mix it with the strategy, we're going to carry out the strategy with the X's and O's. That's what's going on today. Coach Bradford, you were here last night, signed up today with the Inner Circle. Awesome. I think I just caught you there. So Coach Bradford, I think I emailed you the Zoom link. If not, when we're done here, shoot me a message, private message, or send me an email, and I'll make sure you get that before we start the VIP session. Awesome. Okay. So when it comes down to the X's and O's, and I'm really kind of, the longer that I've been working with coaches, I'm really starting to realize the way that coaches who are learning the Princeton offense for the first time today compared to the way that I did 20 years ago, and then the way that my mentors and the coaches that I was able to have access to learned it 10 years, even 5 and 10 years even prior, everyone had a little bit a different take on it. The problem 20 years ago was there's not enough information. There was no YouTube. There was no Facebook. There wasn't. if I've done I did a 3-day masterclass a couple days ago, and I actually downloaded every single, or I'm sorry, off of my bookshelf. I pulled out every single Princeton Offense playbook I had that I could find online. I printed them all off, and they were the most difficult to understand, to read playbooks. Nothing was coherent. The quality of everything was just nothing really kind of made sense. Nothing clicked. So the problem 20 years ago, there just was not enough information. You couldn't go out and find the information. And the coaches who had the information, again, we talked about this yesterday, the OG coaches, Coach Carrill, Coach Carmody, Coach Scott, Coach Thompson, this mainly goes to Carrill and Carmody. If you've ever read the Sports Illustrated article about Pete Carrill, I think it's a 2002 article. I think Jordan's on the cover when he was with the Wizards. That is one of the best articles in the Princeton offense ever. But they would tell a story where they would actually call up Bill Carmody or call up Pete Carrill and say, hey, we'd love to learn the Princeton offense. What can you share with us? Like, we did this. We figured this out. Figure it out on your own. Click. And they would just hang up the phone. That's exactly what they would do. So the part of the Princeton offense that's very secretive, it's in a copycat society where something works well, everyone goes and copies it. In football and basketball and sports, athletics, everywhere. But the slowest offense to be copied has been the Princeton offense because no one would ever share the offense. When I was hired as a head coach for the first time, I'd been working on this offense for 7 years before I was hired as a head coach. I would not even give my playbook to my assistant coach. None of them. I wouldn't give my playbook at all to them. Eventually I did, but initially, the first year or two, I didn't give them. They learned it on the court the same way that I was teaching it. I actually think that actually helped a lot, but at the same time, I didn't want them to leave and then go give my playbook to someone else. I was that protective about it too. And so I understand that side of it. Today, we have a little bit of a different problem, and there's too much information. If you go on YouTube now and look up the Princeton offense, 90% of what you're going to find are coaches breaking down what other collegiate teams are running, but they're not coaches who've actually run it themselves. So when I watch them break down and explain why they're explaining the movements correctly, but why they're doing what they're doing and how they got there, and why they decided to throw the ball left and throw the ball right, why did they decide to cut this way, why did they go back door instead of coming and get a hit, all of that stuff. That's the stuff that you're not getting. And even if you go watch the OG coaches who are still coaching today, if you go watch Joe Scott at Air Force, if you watch Chris Mooney at Richmond, if you watch Princeton, if you watch there's one other program in the Ivy League run at Princeton. If you watch these programs run Princeton today, it looks, you can see glimpses of it, but the core stuff that they were doing 20 years ago and 25 years ago and 30 years ago is completely different. The offense keeps evolving. And as the offense evolves, the game is becoming more and more creative, and it's hard to find that foundation. It's like, well, what does low post look like? If you try to find what low post looks like today, it's not as easy to find as what it was 20 years ago. We just had a limited amount of film. Everyone was running it the same way or very similar, 20, 25 years ago than what everyone's doing it today. Now there's 50, 60 programs on TV that you can watch running Princeton and completely committing to it. Compared to 20 years ago, there's 4, maybe 5 programs that you could find on television, collegiate programs that were actually running it at a high level. Okay, so the problem 20 years ago, not enough information. Problem today, almost too much, too scattered, too creative to actually form a core philosophy of the X's and O's of what's happening with the Princeton offense. So my thought process when I was coaching players, my thought process was I've taken what I've learned from film, from mentors, from just trial and error on the court, in the practice, in games, and I just kept progressing. Once I started working with coaches, I had to think about it from a completely new perspective, because once I started explaining, when you explain the offense to players, they just learn as you go. Okay, and when we talk about installation tomorrow, you're going to see how that progression takes form. It's really a cool thing. We use a completely different strategy than what I grew up learning how to as a player and as a coach to install things. But I wanted to break down this offense. When I started breaking down what I was actually doing, it just kind of actually worked out and just kind of like, oh wow, this is perfect. And then the way that I try to describe it is I want to go to like a first principle solution. Okay, first principles is, if you go right to Aristotle, the first basis from which a thing is known. If we try to simplify something to the very core, if you go talk to 10 different coaches running Princeton about how to run the low post series, let's say none of them have ever seen anything that I've done, or maybe some other coaches, you might get 10 different versions of low post. Okay, so that's where the creativity and the progression of the offense is going, to where nothing's consistent. So I wanted to break everything down in the Princeton offense to a core series, right? Because we're breaking down arguably the most complicated basketball offense known to man, right? And it's actually probably trending as one of the most popular offenses today, even though I would say less than 5% of all coaches are actually running it. Probably 3% or less coaches have committed all the way to it fully. Say we're going all in on Princeton. I would say that percentage is still less than 3%. There's not a lot of coaches. We're still in that rare mold. But to learn this offense and what we can do with it, we first have to simplify it down to a core foundation. So especially new coaches, and even coaches who've been running it for a little bit of time, you're like, when I first got my head coaching job, there was another team in the league that ran Princeton, and that coach had left, so I didn't get to coach against him. But when we started teaching certain parts of the offense, my assistant coach goes, "Oh, that's why you do that. You're doing that because, oh, I get it, because that's what we always wondered why Loudonville, we always wondered why they ran what they ran. We always wondered why they interchanged here, and then they always did this on the other side." It's like, we never knew why. And then it's just kind of clicked. But those are like core foundation things. Once you see a core foundation and a core way to run it, then you can start to modify and change it to your personnel, to your personality, to your experience, and build your Princeton offense up from there, right? So there are 4 core series of the Princeton offense. Think of the Princeton offense as 4 offenses in one. That's the easiest way to understand it. Okay, and I've seen other coaches break it down. Well, there's all of these other, there's like these 7 core concepts, or these 8 little things over here. It's really even simpler than that. There are 4 offenses in one. All right, 4 offenses. And I've been calling these the 4 core series. There are actually a couple other series that Princeton teams will run, especially one. There's a 5th one that a lot of the teams in the 90s and early 2000s would run. I don't count that one because it's much more complicated. Most high schools, I wouldn't recommend running it, especially as a series all the way through, until you've just made your decision on these core 4. Because these core 4 cover almost what any team and any personnel you might have. You could run one or multiple of all of these 4 series. The first one is the low post series. Right? The low post series, for coaches, when to run the low post series, and this is something we talked about yesterday a little bit as well, is you want to choose the first series that's going to complement your best player. And if you're going to run a second series, you want to choose that series, I feel like, that's going to complement your role players, your team as a whole. But when would you run the low post series? One, when you have a dominant low post player. Maybe your best scorer, maybe you're just your best overall player. We want to run the offense through this kid, and he happens to be a post player, and that kid's got to touch the ball for us to be successful. That's when I'm going to run the low post series. That's when I'm going to choose the low post series. Secondly, I would run the low post series when I want to use it as a hub or a gateway to another series. If I want to use the low post series as a different way to enter some of the other series that I run, that would be another reason why I would run the low post series. And then 3, you can also run the low post series as a continuity. No one does it. I had coaches start asking me about it. I'm like, I've never done it before, but maybe we can figure it out. And then we figured out a couple different ways to do it. You can run low post as a continuity, especially if you want to run like a grind the game down kind of style, like a more physical style. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the low post series. All right. The second series, and we're going to go over all of these on the board. I just want to cover them all real quick before we get, because once I get on the board, I don't want to come back to the presentation. So the second core series is the Chin series. This is the most popular, most famous, most well-run. Everyone runs the Chin series. Some coaches, even when they run Chin, they just call it Princeton. When would you run the Chin series? You run Chin when you have shooters and guards who need shots manufactured for them. You would use it as a spread or a pressure release offensive strategy. All right, and you can also run Chin as a continuity. Chin is the series everyone runs as a continuity. Again, it's kind of like, I describe it as a vertical flex. All right, it's a back screen, drift screen, shuffle screen, drift screen. Like flex, you have a down screen, flex screen, down screen, flex screen, over and over. It just repeats. Okay, but there's a lot more scoring actions available with the Chin series. The third series is the point series. The point series is becoming the most popular. Everyone's salivating over split screens and back cuts and all of that. It's much, much more than that. But the point series, when you run the point series, is when you have guards who are playmakers, when you have guards who are playmakers, and you also have a good enough post player who can catch the ball, pass the ball, make good decisions, not going to turn it over. If you don't have a post player or someone who's going to run the 5 spot, it doesn't have to be a post. It could be a forward. It could be a guard that's running the 5-man, that post spot in the point series. But you have to have playmakers. If you don't have playmakers, then you can actually run it without playmakers, but you're not going to be as much ball screen and roll focused. You're going to be running the offense through focused and then trying to get to spots where you're going to be able to shoot threes or get back doors. But primarily, most coaches run the point series when you have guards who are playmakers. And that's where I would start. I would start there if you have those types of players. Using the point series as an attacking offense. If you want to go up tempo, you can attack off of the point series. You can also run the point series deliberately and slow down the offense. Running point, we just modify it a little bit, and actually that's the way that I would initially run it. But you would get to certain points in the offense where you would attack later on in the series. Okay, and some coaches are using the point series to attack early in the offense. They get to a ball screen, boom, and it's hey, let my players go make plays. All right, and for some of us, that's a great strategy. For a lot of us, it's not. Okay, and then you can also run the point series as a continuity. These are things that the continuity part of it, if you only wanted to run point, only want to run chin, only want to run low post, you can run them solely by themselves. They're as their own offense as a continuity. Okay, there's just little modifications you have to make. The last core series is the open series. This is Princeton's version of 5-out. If you talk to real Princeton guys, the inside circle guys, they call their open 1-2-2 because you got one, you get your 5-man at the top of the key, then you got 2 guards and then 2 guards. So they call it 1-2-2. I call it open because less syllables, easier to spit out, and it's what's kind of worked for our players. When would you run the open series? When your big is also a very good perimeter player, can dribble, pass, and shoot, or if you're playing small ball. If you're a small ball team, again, I talked about this yesterday a little bit. A guy that I actually coached with as an assistant. Before that, I coached against him as a head coach, and they ran the open series. Their 5-man was their 5'8", 5'9" guard, athlete. And he could dribble, pass, and he wasn't a great shooter, but he could drive and he could pass as well as anyone on the floor, and he was extremely hard to guard in the open series. You can use this as a spread offensive strategy, attacking with cuts, back cuts, handoffs. It spreads the floor. It puts the defense in a tough situation where there is no help side. When the ball's in the middle of the floor, there's no established help side, so it really can, if you have players that can cut hard, if you have players that can make passes, if you have shooters, you can really do a lot of damage with the open series. All right? You can also run the open series as a continuity. We talked about that yesterday on the VIP session for our coaches in the Zoom room. All right? Okay, so that's all I want to do in the presentation. What I'm going to do is take all of this off. We're going to actually now go through all 4 of those series on the board, okay, before we get to the VIP session. We're 15 minutes in. So now normally, as I find out what buttons here to push, there we go. Normally, I could spend maybe 3 or 4 hours per series, but I want you to get a good understanding of the broad picture of what these look like. And I'm going to do the best I can because I think it's important for you to understand not just the X's and O's, but why we run them the way that we run them, why we cut when we make certain passes, why we screen. Because if you look back especially in the late 90s, even early 2000s, when the swing offense was very popular. And I remember this from a player, from a young assistant coach, swing the ball, swing it to the other side. They would want to swing the ball left, swing the ball right. And of course, Wisconsin was famous for the swing offense. They still run a lot of it. Actually, they run a little bit. Coach Gard is now running sprinkling a little bit of Princeton in there too. So if you're a Big Ten fan, if you're watching Wisconsin this year, let's see if they run a little bit more Princeton. than what they did last year. But the idea is to swing the ball left, swing the ball right, get the defense leaning left so you can attack right. Get the defense leaning right so you can attack left. That's kind of the overall strategy with that. And I will say this, that other offenses do this as well, but we really kind of emphasize when we're teaching it. Hey, yeah, we want to move the defense to the left. We want to move the defense to the right. But even more importantly, I want to take it 2 more dimensions. I want to move the defense to the 3-point line, and I want to move the defense to the baseline or to the basket. So I want to move them left, move them right, move them to the basket, move them out to the 3-point line. And I want to shift them in 4 directions all the time. All right, and what we're trying to teach our players, when we were in Orange County last spring doing our coaching clinic, the players kept asking, like, well, Coach, well, how is this going to help us beat better teams? They kept getting to that, so we kept trying to find better ways to explain it. Say, hey, look, if you are less talented, you've got to be, let's just say in a one-on-one situation, if you're less talented, you've got to get a quicker player off balance, leaning one direction, leaning right, so I can attack left. All right, I need to get them flying out at me while I give a shot fake. If they're flying out, if I've knocked down a couple threes and they have to respect me, and if they're closing out super hard while they're coming at me, I can go the other way and I can get an advantage. Okay, and that's how to do it on an individual basis. But now we're going to do that within a team concept. So we got 5 guys trying to do that at the same time. 5 girls trying to do that at the same time. All right. As the offense, you determine when the race starts. Coach Moore, when we went to Warsaw, Indiana last fall for our clinic, he made this point when he spoke. He's like, you decide offensively when the race starts. And if you know when the race starts and the defense doesn't, they're always a split second behind you. Okay, so we not only know when the race begins and the defense is going to chase us, we actually want them to, we actually want the defense off balance, like even relaxing. We want them going the wrong way as we're going the right way. Okay, so we know when the race starts, but we also know which direction the race is going. That's where I think that's a better way to describe that. Okay, so let's talk low post first. All right, the low post series. Everything starts out Princeton 4 out, 1 in. And not to go into too much detail, but when we talk about concepts, we want to be open. We don't want to get open. Okay, I don't care. Now, as I design my entire X's and O strategy, when I design my offense out, I want to make sure that we have a move and a counter move. All right, so I don't care if this player is open. If they're open, great, we're going to throw it to them. If they're not open, great, we're not going to throw it to them because we know what to do next. If this one's open, we know we can get it there. If it's not open, we know immediately, split second, we can go do something else. We know what to do. The problem arises is our players who are slow to make decisions, who turn the ball over a lot. It's because they're slow to make decisions, because they're not sure if they're open or not. So I don't want to sit here and try to V-cut again and fight our opponent's strength, what we talked about on day 1. I just want to stand out here off the 3-point line, above foul line extended. I'll say somewhere between lane line and 3-point line extended and 4 feet off. If you have to go 5 feet off. If you watch Princeton teams today, they're actually starting up here near the volleyball line. They don't care. Okay, all they want to do is enter the offense. We're not going to score on the first pass, so we just want to enter the offense. All right, so above foul line extended, maybe as high as 3-point line extended. All right, on both sides on the wings are 2 guards, and we call these 2 our guards. These 2 are our forwards. Essentially, they're all guards. That's really important, though, because we'll have terminology like forwards out. Coach will say, some coaches will say invert, some coaches will say exchange. Coaches have different terminology for it, but Princeton guys call these guys guards, these guys forwards. All right, so when they want to exchange or run this dribble handoff, which I don't teach handing it off. I think that a lot of coaches teach forwards out with a handoff. I don't, because it can create problems against more athletic teams. Rabbit hole. But we want our guards, if you put them straddling, lane line extended, I want them, their inside foot on the lane line, inside foot on the lane line. Everyone should be 15 to 18 feet apart, somewhere around that range. That's, for spacing, I think we teach that a lot. 5-man, above the low block, below the first hash. Above the low block, below the first hash. If you run something like triangle, they're mid post. Okay, just kind of definition wise, this is mid post, low post, short corner. Okay, all right, so we are low post. Okay, I don't want to be so low on the block that it completely takes away, our option to go baseline, but this is where we start out. Okay, low post is initiated on a guard to forward pass. We're going to cut through to the opposite corner as hard as we possibly can. And one of the big mistakes that we made when we first started running this in like 2002 is we would actually, our two-man would completely replace to the lane line, and fill up. And this is what we would first do. And if we didn't have it in the low post, we'd reverse it, run it on the other side. And that's how we started doing it. But then I started really paying attention to what film they were doing. And because they weren't running low post as a continuity, they would have the two-man go to the top of the key and fill what we call the point. Okay, we call the top of the key the point. All right, and obviously you can already see where that's going. If you don't know already, you can see where. That's why we call it the point. That's why we stop at the point, because when the ball is on the wing and the five-man is in the low post, we're looking low post. All right, if the five-man is at the point, if the ball is at the point with the guard, then we're trying to run the point series. You guys kind of see how that builds. All right, once we are in, this is the low post formation. Now, technically, I would say we're not in low post yet. All right, for a while, I would call this low, and we're not low post until the ball actually enters to the five man. All right, so you can kind of decide because if I'm saying low post, okay, this is something we tell our players. If coach is calling a play and it's not open, I don't want you to force the play. Okay, so I'll say, hey, go low post. That means just throw it to the wing. I don't want you to look in low post. All right, because most of the time we're also going to want our players to make these decisions on the court as well. When the ball is thrown down to the five, okay, there's one thing that's going to happen immediately that we do regardless. Is before this player, because the first thing is like, hey, once you make a pass, I love standing in our offense. We teach standing, and I teach standing a lot differently than most coaches. I teach standing. We call it, Jim Burson at Muskingum again, called it stand judiciously. Everyone's standing with a purpose, but we teach our players to stand, relax. We want to get to a spot early and stand and relax. And I'm standing and relaxing. The reason is because if I'm all tense on offense, if I'm getting down like, if you're a racer and you're getting down and you're getting set, everyone's waiting on the gun. They're waiting on the race to start, right? But if we can get to the point here, and if I'm just standing and relaxing like nothing's going on, like they're not throwing me the ball, I'm not part of this play, then my defender, they might relax too. And if they relax too, all right, I've got them. If I've got them in a stance and then they start coming out of the stance, okay, I've got them going the wrong way when I know when the race is going to begin. I know when the race starts, they don't, but I also have them going the wrong way. All right, so it's just a little thing. So we want to stand here, but before this player makes this pass, every time we make a pass, there is going to be some kind of movement. Now, there's only three directions this kid can go. All right, he can go left, he can go right, he can go straight. All right, those are the three decisions. But before the guard who enters the ball to the low post, before he goes either to the corner, either goes right, either goes left, or goes straight, we're always going to what we call back cut the point. We're going to back cut the point, and we're going to circle the D. All right, so when we back cut, another big concept that we talk with Princeton is we want to watch the player in front of you. They'll tell you what to do. All right, and this is something that's also going to come down when we talk about installation tomorrow. This is huge. When we rep this, Princeton teams, they do everything five-man. 5-on-0, 5-on-5. They don't do this stuff 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 3-on-0, 4-on-0. They don't do it, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. That's kind of a little bit more controversial, but I promise you, for coaches who have adopted that, I think it's worked out a lot more for them. But we back at the point and we circle the D. The 4 is going to fill the point, the 1 is going to fill the wing, 2 is going to fill the corner, and we get back into the exact same location that we started with. Okay, we just have different players there. Now I'm going to show you why. Because we are in the business of manipulating defenses. And just real quick, I can never teach low post without explaining this, because this is what the Princeton offense does to its core. We do this in every series. I'm just going to show you with the low post series. I'm not going to show you with the defense with every series, but I am going to show you the low post series because it's just that important. So when you put the help side out here, okay, and if you have not seen me do this before, 5-man's got the ball. Put X5 out there too. All right, when the defense is set, and if you're coming down right out of transition, throw the ball wing, running low post, Defense is always best within the first 10, 12 seconds. That's when they're set. They're coming down, everyone's going to their spots, the defense is going right to their spots, and this is what it looks like. Now, to me, this looks like 1 on 3.5, maybe 1 on 4. Right? This is where a good, well-coached defensive team, man-to-man defensive team is going to be. They're going to be 2 players on the midline. We're starting to see this guy leak out a little bit. Right? But for the most part, if I'm teaching, I got both of them on the midline. Until this kid can prove that they're shooting like crazy, then we might start to leak them out a little bit. But if you wanted to know the big difference between high school, college, pro, one, and this is why you're going to see this in a second. And I tell you what, before I get to that, because I'm just going to go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole. High school, this is where the defense is. All right? College, because in the high school game is more diluted, all right? Less talent, more players, less talent, less skill, not as good shooters. We can get away with this, and we can protect the basket at a higher level. All right? Collegiately, these guys are both 35, 43% three-point shooters. Plus, these guys are superior athletes. They can cover more ground, so they can actually split this difference a little bit better. So college defenses, you're going to see right here. When I was a practice player for the women at Ohio State, I had to go to the assistant coaches. It was Seth Kushkin was the assistant coach. I had to go and say, look, do you want me? Because I kept playing midline defense like I did in high school. And the girls would get so pissed. It's like, Wheeler's in the wrong spot. They're not going to be there. And I had to go, I said, what do you want me to do? He's like, just do what you're doing. And I'm like, but because collegiately, even in the women's game, they expect the defense to be over here. There's more space. Right? And also the difference that you're also going to see collegiately, and you have to take this into consideration with everything that you do off, whether you run Princeton or not, is the three-point line is what, 10, 12 inches deeper in the college game. All right? Moving the three-point line back is going to, in itself, space out the floor more. All right? So not only collegiately, you have better talent, better skill, more athleticism, that's going to stretch the floor, all right, but also the three-point line is moved back. All right? In the NBA, you go professionally, they have a rule. You can't even be in here for 3 seconds, so they stand out here. And that three-point line is now like 3 feet back. So the spacing is even more. But in high school, we're not. In high school, the game is diluted. When I worked as an assistant for Coach Sheck, coach that I coached with, again, that's the coach that I coached against, and then I ended up being his assistant for a couple years. He told his players, look, when he's trying to explain them defense, look, just wall up, just make them shoot over you, because high school players aren't that damn good. And it's funny, but it's true, and it's true in a general level. The game is so diluted at the high school level. Okay, now it might not be. Now for 90% of us, it is. There's some of us that play at a high level, especially bigger schools that have more players to pull from. If you're D4, if you're a small school, you might see a lot of defense like this. If you're D1 and you're playing a lot of talent, you might be maybe with the boys, you might be over here a little bit more. So it's just the level of talent is going to dictate where that midline is. But I want you to understand this, because this is how the Princeton offense manipulates defenses. A split second, we're running low post, a split second before the 5-man even touches the basketball, we're going to back cut the point. And what happens when you go backdoor, and this is why I hated it, I never understood it. It was always a battle. When I was in high school, we ran our motion offense, 4-round 1. We would make a pass, right, and we would take 2 steps away, and then when boom, then we would try to cut the face of our defender. All right? And as a defender, I'm like, I never got beat, because the one thing that we always taught well in defensively, we were taught to jump to the ball and deny. So when you try to cut my face, I'm like, that's the easiest thing to guard in the world. It's like, why are we trying to do this offensively? All right? What Princeton coaches who got this right, when they go backdoor, it takes the tension out of the game. We talked about that yesterday. So when we go backdoor, what happens is, instinctively, if I go in front of this player's just going to ride me out the whole way, and the next defender, they don't have to help or do anything, because this player's stuck on him the whole time. But if I go behind this guy like this, that defender, that number 2 guy's going, he snaps his head and turns, and now he's reacting to me. And they're already a step behind, because I'm standing like this, like nothing's going on, and boom, and then I cut. All right? And when I cut, that quick reaction, oh no! and the 2-man's like already behind. And the 4-man's like, oh no, I see my teammates behind, so I have to help too. So X4 is going to, and I'm cutting right into them. I'm trying to cut behind the 2-man, and if I can, if they're here, I'm probably going to cut behind the 4-man too. And this is why I was telling the coaches on the VIP session last night, is that at the varsity level, we never got this backdoor. But my JV, my freshmen got it all the time. And that wasn't because of lack of talent, lack of skill, the game being even more diluted than the varsity game. It's because they just weren't as well coached, and those defenders were standing out here, JV and freshmen, who were getting a lot of backdoors. Okay, varsity level, they're right here. But what happens is the mechanics of a backdoor is I'm going backdoor, I'm going to take my defender down, and I'm going to take the next defender. And as soon as this defender starts going this way, I'm going this way. All right? See how we manipulate, how that manipulation works? I get, and this isn't like on a one-on-one situation. I basically got 2 guarding 1, but when one's going this way, I get them going the wrong way. I know when the race starts over here. This one doesn't. Okay, just like when I'm standing here. I know when the race starts, boom, this one's now reacting late, and this one's now reacting late. And when I've got this one coming down to the basket, I'm going away from the basket. All right, and what happens is this. As this rotation, so we say we're going to back at the point, circle the D. And we are literally, I tell my guys, we are going to run a circle. We're going to run circles around this defense all night long, guys. This is what we're going to do. All right? And it's literally what we do. And also figuratively. We make them chase us all the time. That's what we want to do. One man's going to fill the point, or fill the point. 4-man fills the point. 1-man fills the point. And actually, the way we fill the point, we sprint to about here, then we start to creep. I want to creep as I'm approaching the point. That's an important detail on the court. I'm going to be talking about the coaching clinic that we're going to be doing this spring. You see this on the court very well when we actually have role players. But 2 now is sprinting as hard as they possibly can. And if I can get the 2-man to react to me, they're going to chase me. If I get them to the lane line, I won. If I go backdoor and if I cut out hard and this kid chases me even to where he's almost touching the lane line, I won. I did my job. Right? Your 4-man's fill in the point, top of the key, hands, ball, calling for the ball. X4's like, oh no, I went too low. I got to go close out to my guy. And next thing you know, X4's out here. And then the 1-man's filling the 3-point line, 5-man, ball. And then X4's like, oh no, I got to get up here and deny like this. And next thing you know, 5-man catches it. And we just turned a high school defense into a collegiate defense. Right? That is what the Princeton offense does. This is the tactic. Right? This is the X's and O's executing the strategy that we talked about on day 1. All right? If we can manipulate the defense and get the defense away from the lane, all right, because they're supposed to be here, but if we can get them here, now our 5-man can go score. All right, when the defense is right here, you can't score. Nothing you can do. You can't get in there. You're 3-on-1 at least. It's almost 3.5-on-1. You can't score that way. All right? So we want to manipulate the defense. So that's why we back at the point, we circle the D to get the defense to shift. Now we do this in the point series, we do this in the chin series, we do this in the open series. Everywhere we do this, there's always some kind of manipulation. We're shifting the defense left and right. We're shifting the defense vertically shifting them horizontally left and right, vertically up and down. All right? To the rim, away from the rim. All right? So now that I've explained that, let me get into the rest of the mechanics of a low post series. So we back at the point, we circle the D. So this is going to happen first. Boom, 2-man goes back door. We start to fill. Now the 3-man is going to decide, hey, what am I doing? Okay? And if you're teaching a low post, I recommend starting out with just one of these 3 options. Don't teach all 3 of them in the same day. All right, just teach one of them, get really good at it, and if you want to teach a second one, teach that one, get really good at it. Okay? So you can go low post corner. You can go low post cut. You can go low post screen away. And if you notice, we call the plays exactly what's happening. So when we're in practice and we're saying, hey, guys, low post corner. Okay, they didn't have to, because what most of us do, we'll call, hey, run Ohio. And the first thing they have to do is say, hey, they have to learn low post corner and then associate, okay, Ohio means low post corner. And then Michigan means low post screen away. And then Illinois means low post cut. Okay, there's this extra step in the learning process. So what Princeton guys did was they took that extra learning step out and just said, hey, we just call plays what they are. And then what happens is when the 3-man feeds the 5 and goes to the corner, everyone knows, hey, we're in low post corner because he's standing in the corner. All right? If he cuts, everyone knows, oh, we're low post cut because he cut. All right? And if he's coming across the lane like screening, everyone knows that, hey, it's low post screen away because look, I can see him screening away. Okay, and now are we just getting enough repetition and practice to actually go through all of that? Okay, so you can go low post corner, and then you end up with your original formation. All right, you can go low post cut. Now, if you go low post cut, it's a little different. Well, it's similar but different. But now we've emptied a spot. So you watch the player in front of you. They tell you what to do. The foreman's like, oh no, we cut. This is the hardest thing to do to get these guys to in low post cut. If you run low post cut, you have to teach this thing 5-0. You have to teach it 5-on-5 because this kid will never fill like that if you don't get those reps in, okay? 4-man is sprinting to the wing. Now the 1-man is basically everyone sprinting 2 spots, and you end up in the exact same ending formation, all right? If you go low post screen away, I'm going to back this one up just a little bit, okay? So we're going to go low post screen away. Coaches will do this. If you don't back cut the point, all right, this screen is going to be at the elbow. All right, because your defender is going to be, X2 is going to be right about here. Now, if I'm going to go, and I can go back door from there. Okay, I might be able to use it from there because there's about 10 feet there that I can work with. But I can't curl because I'm going to run right into my teammate. All right, so what happens is when we back, this is the detail. I'm a little bit more in the scope of what I want to show here, but kind of a bonus, you're getting it. When we go back door, and this is why we teach the 4-man to creep. We're going to get about to the lane line, go hard, lane line. I'm going to start to slow down. My eyes are on the 5. My eyes are on the 3. What's going on? What I need to see what this kid's doing to know what I need to do. We watch the guy in front of us. See the 3-man coming to start screening. Now this 3-man can screen at the nail because I'm creeping. And once I get to this point, I don't care if I'm here, if I'm a little late. I don't want to be here. All right, but I want my defender in between myself and the screen. Okay, and we'll talk about this a little bit in point screen away, but I don't care how they guard us. Ever. I never care how they guard us. I just want to make sure my players see how they're guarding us. And if our players can see how they're guarding us, what we teach them is, hey, if you see this, do this. If you see that, do this. All right? If you see this thing, do that thing instead. Okay, and now we're starting to get this understanding. Hey, when I see this, I'm going back door. When I see this kid on my line, boom, I'm going to walk in a straight line, chop my feet, go back door. This is why we don't back cut. This is why we don't V cut when we're setting screens. We don't V cut to get open because I want to fight my opponent's strength. I don't V cut when someone's setting a screen for me because now I'm come down and now the race has already begun and he knows because I V cut. He's trying to get open. So he can just get on my hip and just chase me. All right, but if I walk in a straight line to this, if you V-cut, you take at least one of the options away. You take a back cut option away. Now you can only score 2 out of 3 ways. But if you just walk in a straight line, chop your feet, if he's down here, boom, I'll use it. If he's up here, boom, I'll go back door. If he's playing me tight, boom, I might tight curl, and I'll curl like this. Okay, and then our 3-man will pop. But let me just go ahead and just show you what a back cut looks like. We're going to go back door. Now there is a problem here. If I back door, I can't fill this spot because it's taken, and this guy can't move to make room for me because this one's taken. This one can't come up here because I'm going to be too close to the 3-man. So when you go low post back door, the 4-man's always going to feel underneath the 5. I would start at the corner, work your way up to the wing, but what's going to happen now is the 3-man is going to screen, boom, reverse pivot, pop to the top of the key, and now you see that we're in the exact ending formation that we were. And you're 4 in the corner, just like you would run low post corner. Okay, or if you're fed the post, or even if you end up here, it's the exact same formation. Now, I'm going to say this, and you're going to see this in the next 3, because I'm going to go through the next 3 series fairly quick. You guys can already see we're 40 minutes in. I've only gotten through low post. But these little details are important. All right, they're extremely important. And I just lost my train of thought for a second. Oh, each series comes to a natural end. This is something we just started talking about this spring. When you're learning the offense, low post comes to a natural end. The way that Princeton has been running this for the last 40 years. Low post series at its core, at its first principle foundation, comes to a natural end, and this is what it looks like. It actually looks like almost exactly how it started, except the ball is with the 5, right? And we always end up in this point wing corner situation, and we're either on the corner or we're either on the wing on this side, depending on what happened over there. But low post always looks like this when you finish low post. All right. Now, I'm going to stop the conversation there. We're going to go to the next series, but what you're going to see once you take the next steps, and we're just learning the core X's and O's. Once you learn how we phase, counter, and audible, how each of these come to a natural end, and what this picture looks like versus what the chin series looks like at its natural end versus the point series at its natural end, at the open series at its natural end. All right, whatever formation you end up with, it's going to actually help you key into, hey, if I'm running low post, do I get into point? Do I get into chin? Do I get into open? What do we do next? If we were going to run 2 series together, if you ran it this way, if you low post, if hey, 5-man can't score, what might we do? And I'll just kind of show you. We just snap the ball to point, and then we're in the point series. But to be in the point series, 5-man's got to be at the elbow instead of the low post. A lot of coaches will call this a side post. All right, and now we're basically point wing corner like low post, but now we're attempting to enter the point. We're not in point yet. I would say yes. I could say yes. We're in point now, but we're not running any. We're not running any of the point options yet because the 5-man doesn't have the ball. Okay, but just so you can see, each series, low post, chin, point, and open, they come to a natural end. All right. Okay, back up top. The chin series. I'm going to go through this one fairly quick because everyone knows it, but it's just these little details. Pay attention to these little details. All right. Chin always starts with a 2-pass reversal. All right, it's bang, bang, 2-pass reversal. 1-man never cuts a lot. One of the biggest mistakes teams and players will make, they'll make that pass, boom, they start cutting right away. And what happens is if the 1-man makes this pass and starts cutting right away, they're coming off of the screen before the 4-man gets the ball. And if this is happening first, the 4-man's eyes are looking at the 2. They're looking at the ball, and by the time, and this one's like, oh man, I'm open. They call for the ball, and by the time that the 4-man catches and turns, the 1-man's already down here, and you miss an opportunity to score. All right, so we tell our point guard, it's in once we get to skill work. I think we're doing a session on skill work and player development. All right, it's the hesitation. All right, well, we actually had when we coach girls, the girls would tell them to hop, because the girls just wanted to throw and go. They just wanted to move. We'd say, hey, make the pass, hop, and then go. All right, or just pause, 1001, 1000. Okay, so sometimes your kids that are antsy, tell them to hop, boom, and then go. All right, kids that kind of get, boom, they can catch it, hezzy, and cut. Just like we do in our layups, fellas. All right, make the pass, hezzy, and then cut. That's a 1001, 1000, and now you're going. And now the timing works out. Because now the 4-man has the ball, boom, and now we're cutting. And there's 3 ways to score off the shuffle cut. So 5-man is their outside foot is on the lane line, and I don't care. I actually like somewhere 50-50 between the foul line extended and 3-point line extended. That's where I like my 5-man, just somewhere right in the middle. Right, we're screening here like this. I like to get my elbows out just a little bit, just to kind of make defenders want to go around me a little bit instead of screening like this. I kind of like getting out here, bending their knees, getting a little bit wider. We're not setting illegal screens or anything. We're coming off the shuffle. There's 3 ways to score. Now, one of the big things that I teach our players, I teach our 4-man, the first read, because there's 3 looks. We look at this 3 times before we move on to the next thing. We look early, late, and in the post. Now, for you to get a layup at all, the first thing that has to be true is the 5-man, X5 has got to be high. If X5 is high, boom, 4-man's like, oh, all right, yeah, we got one. Okay, and their eyes are getting big, and they're looking for that. We're pass faking low, we feed everything over the top. All right, stuff that we do on the court, all the little details that we'll do on the court. Come off of this. If we're early, what happens is 1-man backpedaling, all right, poorly coached defensively, poorly disciplined. If they're backpedaling and they just get blasted, boom, I'm going to be open early on this side of the basket. Ball's going to come over here. If they don't jump to the ball and they turn around and they start chasing me, get on my hip, all right, it's kind of like a NASCAR race. All right, we create separation in the corners. All right, so when we go into the corner, we're tight. When we come out of the corner, one's always creating separation and pulling away, and that's exactly what happens here. When we turn the corner, this one's going around my elbow. right? Or this one doesn't know if I'm going straight or turning, but they're chasing me and I create separation. I'm open late on the strong side. And the third way, it happens two ways. If this one jumps to the ball, which is what a well-coached defensive team will do, this will jump to the ball, and this one will backpedal and sag. All right, this is what a well-coached defense is going to do. So I'm not going to be open early by default because X5 is here. All right. Also, because X1, I mean, even if X5 was high and X1's jumping to the ball, I could be open early or late. All right. But X5 is dropped. They've taken both of those options away. So I'm early, late's out of the picture. X1's coming to meet me, and they come over here and they deny me. I want them to deny me because as they try to deny me over the top, I'm going to step, swim. Again, easier to show on the court, and I'm going to try to post up. Okay. My 5-man, my 2-man, once they make the pass, they're coming down and they're going to plant on their outside foot. 5-man is going to follow the arc and then put their shoulders to the corner. Shoulders to the corner. I want my butt facing the point at the top of the key because that's where I want the 2-man to get open. Not necessarily at the point. Actually, I should probably say just shoulders to the corner. We actually want to get open a little bit here, but I'll show you that in a second. Third way we'll look is in the post. Now, this doesn't have to be low post. Sometimes your guards are good coaching out here in this mid post. This is out here in the middle of the lane, and we make the pass here, and now we can reverse pivot, and your guards can go make plays, or they can go through traditional post moves, which we teach all of our guards. All right, off of the shuffle, or I'm sorry, that's off the shuffle. This is the big thing that we talk about to our players in clinics and camps is eye contact. When the 4-man is making eye contact with the 1 the entire way, they're off the shuffle. As soon as my eyes leave the 1 like this and they go to the 2, the 1-man's, oh, he's done playing with me, I'm going to get out of here. Empty the corner, and now we're focusing on the drift actions. All right, there's 5 ways to score on the drift. We call this a drift and not a flare because a flare, like a traditional flare, is, hey, he's setting the screen for me. I'm actually going to turn and I'm going to start run. I'm going to turn around and start running, and then it's over the shoulder. I'm going to turn and sprint, and that turn and sprint is supposed to create the separation. But what we do instead is we plant, and we almost basically take our defender here. We take them below, and then we come back pedal, and we kind of like just a little hitch at the end, like a little. It's a drift. It's like a little hook cut, I should say. Maybe like kind of like a reverse button hook if you're trying to visualize it on the court. We're kind of coming backwards, and we might come straight here. We might kind of come backwards and then kind of circle out a little bit because sometimes they'll chase us over, sometimes they'll go under. All right, and we'll react differently depending on what they do. But once we hit this, we want to hit it here and not over here at the top of the key. All right, this is where we want to be on this close to, if you were to call this a shoot, I don't want to be on the midline because I want to have more room to play on this side. If I catch it over here, it's going to be a shallower pass, easier for it to get deflected. I'll demonstrate this on the court much easier than I can on the board, but trust me, the angle here, making this pass, is going to be much more open. It's much higher percentage because think about it. If you turn the ball over here, that's a layup. That's points. But if you're going to the top of the key, the angle of the pass is right here. All right, or even if you're up here, the angle of the pass is still like this. And X5, maybe they're hedging and they just get a finger on that. Okay, or maybe X2 is chasing you over the top. And if you're going this way, they just stick that right hand out, they get a tip of it, and they're getting layups. Okay, so that's why we call it a drift and not a flare. All right, so the 2-man has the ball off of the drift. 5 ways to score. 1, shot. All right, pull. Go underneath, you're open, shoot the 3. That's the first way. Second way is the drive and score. You're going to catch it, they chase you over the top. And again, this is we're manipulating the defense. X2 is running away from the rim. That's when I'm going to attack the rim. All right, 1 dribble, 2 dribbles, go score. All right. There are 2 ways we'll teach them the drive. 1, just put your head down and go, get in the gap, score. Second one is we're going to go hard. This one's chasing. We're going to go hard 1 dribble, and now you're working with this next defender. When you go hard 1 time and you see this defender start to commit, we're going to hezzy. And when you hezzy, what this kid does is he recovers. We teach him jab, recover, cat, mouse, cat, mouse. All right, so when we go hard, he hedges. All right, when we hezzy, he recovers, and that gap opens back up, and then boom, I go again and score. So we'll teach him how to score off that drive those two ways. The third way we score off this is a dribble at back cut. Again, this is going to be a read. Now, again, I'll say it should be a read, but especially against less disciplined defenses, and I've seen this with a lot, especially maybe even at the varsity girls level a little bit. It worked for us a lot. Is we always taught the dribble at back cut. This is what it is. Does not, for some reason, it did not matter if they were here. If they're on the 3-point line, it's automatic. I catch it. Boom. When I say dribble at back cut, also don't dribble at your teammate, don't dribble at the defender, drive the elbow. I try to get in the gap best you can. Get here to throw the back cut. Don't get here to throw the back cut. There's a huge difference. Again, it's angled. You're threading a needle here. Here you've got a big window. All right? But we can go back door and you got the layup. A lot of times teams will even be on a pack line and we go and we drive in this gap, and this one what they do is they step up to me and they don't stay in a denial stance. And what happens is they step up like this, boom, we go back door and they start backpedaling and we still get them. Okay, so we got shot, we got drive, we got dribble at back cut. We also have, if they're in the pack line, so coach, what do you do with Princeton when they run the pack? Well, do what makes sense. All right, if they're open, throw them the ball. All right, so we're going to give it and they're going to close out, and X2 is chasing us, so we're going to give it and boom, we're going to go. So I've got a shot. All right, or I've got a give and go. All right, or if I don't have that one, 2-man is going to keep going out, and the 3-man could catch it, and they could drive middle. They could play off that little bit. Usually you're going to give it and go. They're going to close out this gap. If they don't have anything here, we'll talk about what to do there in a second. All right, so that's the fourth way to score. The fifth way is what's probably going to be the most common is the driving kick. The driving kick, to kind of break down in multiple different ways. As soon as I catch the ball, we should be on the wing, on the weak side. On the first dribble, if this player is over here, I'm staying where I'm at. Okay? But if this player is over here playing 50-50, good defense, pack line denial, doesn't matter. If they're in that split, excuse me. Nope, okay. So when I take that first dribble, there it was. Okay, when I take that first dribble, we're going down to the corner. And what that does is it takes that defender and it stretches it out. Give us a little bit more room. Now, if they're open in the corner, they're going to be open while I'm high. So kind of like when you're running a press offense against a 1-2-2 or 2-2-1, you have two players on a string. That's exactly what's happening here. So as I'm driving on the first dribble, this 3-man is boom, sprinting to the corner to get this X3, stretch out that defense. If they're going to be open, they're going to be open now. So I can kick it to them now. And if I kick it to them, I'm going to keep going and go the same way. And then when they close out, boom, on our drive middle. And that's how we're going to attack off of the driving kick. The other way this driving kick happens is on the first bounce, 3-man goes to the corner. One of the most common ways I see our players turn the basketball over with the driving kick is we're going to drive real deep. And then this teammate stays here, and we still try to kick it to the corner. But now that 3-man's like this, and boom, let's just stick that hand out here. We throw it, boom, they get deflected and go. That's the most common way to turn the basketball over. I see this all the time with my players. And when we started seeing it, we're like, okay, look, guys, when we get deep, this one has to return. All right, now just by moving, I can get the ball here, and this defender's a split second behind. I can turn around, 2-hand chest pass, throw it there. He's got a shot on a driving kick. But now I've kicked it high because I was low. I'm going to keep emptying out the corner. Boom, they start to close out hard. Boom, I'm going to drive around them. All right, and that's how we attack them on the chin drift. Okay, so there's the low post series, there's the chin. Now, this is where chin comes to a natural end. Okay, and because everyone knows chin being a continuity, again, there's a lot of other stuff that happens in chin. What if the drift's not open? Okay, there's stuff that we do there too. I'm not going to be able to get there in this Zoom. As you can see, we're already at an hour. I still have to do point and open, so we're gonna go. But this is where chin comes to a natural end. All right, at this point, I can't get a shot, I can't drive, I can't score. This is where chin naturally ends. Okay, now, because everyone knows this, I'm going to show you real quick. The way to get to chin's continuity is we're actually going to, I will tell my 3, even when they catch it here, I want to dribble at, what do I say? Basically, I want them to drive middle, and then I want them to back dribble. Okay, dribble at, dribble back. I think I said, my terminology was something along those lines to my players. So we're going to drive the elbow, And then once we get here, when I back dribble, a back dribble is like universal for Princeton for reset the offense. So any point in time we back dribble up the lane line, this is going to help you no matter if your players are stuck. Back dribble, reset it. Instead of saying reset, we say, hey, back dribble, back it up, and we're going to back dribble here. That tells everyone up to fill the lane lines. 5-man follows the ball, and now you can run chin again. Okay, there's multiple, I should say dozens of ways to run the chin series. There's multiple ways to run the low post series. All right, but this is the core way to run it. Okay, this is the core way to run it. If the drift's not open, okay, again, there's other things that we'll do to just kind of reset the continuity. It's also basically, if the drift's not open, we go back door, we back dribble back up, reset the offense, run it again on the other side. Okay, so that's the chin series. And I understand that I'm going very fast. But to try to teach the Princeton offense in 45 minutes to an hour, really difficult. Okay, that's why I've done it in 8-week workshop teaching the Princeton offense. It took me over 60 hours with whiteboard sessions, film room sessions, breakout sessions, just all 100% on Princeton. So there is so much, but again, you don't have to just to learn the offense. You don't have to go that deep into it. Okay, but that's for coaches who really want to go that deep into it. Right, the point series. Multiple ways to get into the point series. All right, but the most common way is to wave your inbound or wave your off guard through. All right, and so some coaches will call this the wave series because they're actually, the hand signal is a wave. So coaches will call this a wave series. Some coaches will call this a go series because we're verbally telling the two-man, hey, go. Right? And when I was an assistant coach, through my first 7-year stint, when we were first learning this, we actually called this the Go Series. It's one of the things we called it. We called it Tiger, and we called it the Go Series because of our mascot. But we're going to wave our 2-man through. Our 5-man, this is a little thing, but if you're having a hard time getting open, start having your 5-man do this. 5-man's in the low post. We wave the 2-man through. Tell your 5-man, hands up, 1 step back, and then circle across the lane. By going 1 step back and then circling, basically what it does, it creates separation from the 5-man. Because if this 5-man is sticking you the whole time, it's going to be hard to get open. Because they can get on your hip and this brush cut will never do anything. But what happens is if you can create separation by going like this, and then they're like, oh no, and what's going to happen? Instead of them going this way and chasing you this way, you go backwards, they go backwards, you create separation on the turn, time this up with the 2-man, and now the 5-man, you have the separation. Now the 2-man can actually go and run the brush. All right, while this is happening, your 1-man they don't have to dribble to the baseline, but they got to, boom. Now they have a little bit of one-on-one time here. They got to be able to at least juke them sideline, juke them right so they can cross over, go left, go middle. So I'm coming over here, I'm going here, hard, and then 1 dribble, maybe 2. They do not have to be on the point, but they have to be arriving to the point. We don't want to go past the point because of angles. 2-man's going to boom, break out, never make contact here to the corner. 5-man's creating even more separation. 1-man drops it down, ends up at the point. Ball, strong side wing has got to go down to the corner. Okay. Now, I shouldn't say they have to, but at the high school level, there are special situations where we'll leave this one high. But what happens if you leave X4 high? What I noticed, because we actually tried to leave them high on purpose when I first became a head coach, or sometimes maybe when I was running this with my JV girls, is they would just sit here and cherry pick. And they would just, as soon as my 5-man went like this, X4 is like, boom, pick the pocket, and they would go. All right, if you bring your 4-man down to the corner, they bring X4 down, that never becomes an issue again. Because if 4-man goes like this, boom, we just go back door, and 5-man turns, wolf, turn around, overhead, we got a layup. All right, so 4-man's in the corner. This is the point series formation. You saw me do this in low post. At the very end of low post, throwing it to the top of the key. This is the formation of the point series. I'm not going to go through all of every single action, but I'm going to show you the directional stuff, and then we can maybe go into we'll go into a little deeper dive with the VIPs, and maybe we can touch on it just a hair tomorrow, maybe when we install one of these offenses. But just like low post, when we throw the ball to the 5, now at the side post, okay. Point guard is at the point. That's why we call it the point series. The point initiates it. Once the ball is into the 5-man at the side post, Now it's the guards running the show up here instead of the 5-man running the show down here. You can go 3 ways. You can go left, you can go right, you can go straight. Okay, we don't want to go backwards, right? Unless we have the ball and we're, back dribbling to reset the offense. If you don't have the ball, never go backwards. So you feed the low post, left, right, straight. Right? Feed the 5-man, left, right, straight. All right, if I go right, boom, I'm going point screen away from the 5. Walk in, chop our feet, we're not V-cutting, boom, back door, curl, use the screen. We always teach the back door first because your players have never done it. Your players will always use it. They've been taught since they were 3 years old playing, go get the ball, go get the ball. When you watch kids at the youth levels play, they're sprinting to get the ball every single time. Teach them to go back door until it is a reflex. Right? Practice leads repetition. Repetition leads to habits. Habits lead to reflexes. You want to get past habit and make it a reflex. Go back door, go back door, go back door, go back door. Then I'll teach them to curl, and then curl, and then curl. Or then I'll go back door, then I'll teach them to go get handoffs and go use the screen. All right, but teach them to go back door first. All right. So actually, I tell you what, I will go through the point series all the way through. And I'm going to do it the easy way. I'll do it most coaches. When I polled the Facebook group, most coaches wanted to run Princeton as up-tempo strategy. And if they didn't want to go up-tempo, they wanted to spread it out. So I'm just going to show you this one version of it. And I'll do the same thing, point over and point down the middle. So point screen away, we're going to go back cut. I like down screening, but we're just going to spread it out. And the 4-man is going to come up. Not all the way up, but just a little bit up to make room for the 3. When the 1 screens, we go back door, X1 comes down, 1-man pops up the lane line. It's a screen reverse pivot up the lane line. We hit the 1, 5-man sprinting for a drag screen. Now the 4-man can get to the elbow, the 3-man can get down to the corner, and now we're coming off this ball screen. Now, if you, depending on your personnel, you'll adjust the point screen away option to match your personnel. If you've got players, all right, if you got playmakers, boom, ball screen and roll, slip this ball screen, let this kid go make a play. Let him go drive and kick. Let that kid go make a play. All right, so this would be the up-tempo version of point screen away. And at this point, point screen away can come to a natural end because your ball screen and roll, you're attacking, and it's just, hey, play now. All right, that's coaches who want to run up-tempo. This is kind of the way that you would approach that. Coaches, let me just go ahead and I have to do this. I have to do the down screen. So we come off the ball screen. The way that I do it, especially for coaches who want to run this more deliberate, maybe they're having a hard time getting open, maybe they don't have the playmakers, I'm going to set this down screen for the 3 to get them out to the other side. At the same time, I'm setting the ball screen. We'll roll, but if we don't have the roll, the 5-man is going to abandon it. If we don't get it right away, 5-man is going to abandon it, come back up, and the 1-man is going to hit the 3. 4-man can post up if that's a post-up player, or they can pop out. All right, the 5-man is going to follow the arc. Boom, set the drift, hit the 1 off the drift, and at this point, if you've already taught chin and then you teach point screen away, at this point, all right, fellas, what are we in? Ladies, and this is the point that their eyes are going to get big. Oh, coach, this is chin. This is the chin drift. That's what this is. But it's point screen away. It also ends the same way the chin drift ends. So when I'm trying to help coaches shortcut what to install, I'll say, hey, well, what do you want to run? Well, I want to run the point series and I want to run chin. I'll say, okay, well, which one should I install first? I don't care. Install whichever one you want first. Whichever one's going to be your primary offense, the one that you want them to be best at, run that one first. So, okay, let's run point screen away first. Or let's run point first, but I would say run point screen away because I know that point screen away and chin both end the exact same way with this exact same drift if you do what I just did now. So if you taught point screen away first and then you taught chin, by the time they get off that, now the footwork is a little bit different in the 2 coming off the drift. I'll show you guys how to do that at the clinic for coaches coming to the clinic, which we're going to be talking about tomorrow. So if you're here tonight, come tomorrow. I'm going to actually talk about the actual on-court clinic with real players. And actually we're going to be working with girls this year for the most part. The last couple clinics have been mostly boys and actually collegiate men. So we're going to come off of this drift, a footwork a little bit different, but once they run chin and they get off the same drift, they're like, oh man, that's exactly the same. We're coach, chin is just like point screen away. That's what your players will say that to you. They'll verbally say that to you. Coach, this is just like the other thing we just did. Yeah, right? And the beauty about this is from an efficiency standpoint, is if you've already done chin, you don't have to teach them any new things at this point. You got 5 ways to score, kid. You got to shoot the 3, you got the drive, you got the dribble up back cut, you got the give and go, you got the drive and kick. And I won't even teach them all 5 of those. I'll teach them to shoot it, I'll teach them to drive it, and I'll teach them one other. Probably going to be drive and kick. And then what happens naturally as they get better at the offense, hey, look, if they're denying, just go back door, man. And then that's the dribble up back cut. Or hey, if they're wide open, if you catch off the drift, they're just wide open. That kid should just throw them the ball and then cut. Oh, that's a give and go. And they'll instinctively like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You're denied, man. Go back door. Man, you're wide open. Here it is. And they will instinctively get the give and go, the dribble up back cut. Okay? Unless you anticipate seeing a lot of undisciplined defenses and you just want to dribble up back cut all the time, you can absolutely teach that first. But I would just shot, drive, and then one of those other 3. Probably the dribble, the drive and kick, because that's going to be the one you see the most. All right? So that's point, screen, away. Point over the top is basically over the top of the 5. Simplify it by just calling it over. Away, instead of saying screen away, you can just say point away. Basically here, now the difference between point, screen away and point over the top is when you go point over the top, unbalances the floor. So now I'm going to screen and pop back, and 5-man's going to hit here, and we're going to go set the same ball screen and roll that we do in point, screen away, except now I've got 3 guards on one side, and I'll actually fill, if I'm running it this way, I'll fill just like this. Okay, so one thing that I did, I actually ran it a more deliberate way my first 2 years as a coach, and then I modified it to get a drift the same way we do in point, screen away, but it was still a little different. So we would come off the ball screen and roll, send this kid backdoor, but this kid I would stay on the same side. Okay, because I wanted the empty corner. I wanted this side. I wanted it off balance because it gave my playmakers more room to make plays. Okay, there are ways to modify point over the top to finish the exact same way point, screen away does. And we teach our inner circle members how to do that. But this backdoor gets the 2-man open. We throw it to the 2. The 5-man comes back and sets a drift, and we drift over here, chest pass, and we're circling the defense over here the same way we do in low post. All right? For coaches who did not pick that up, we're going backdoor, we're circling, and then the defense is boom. They're snapping, they're turning, they're chasing us, keeping all that defense over here. So now when I'm off this drift, boom, I can drive it. I got a shot, I got a drive, I got my 5-man rolling, and we got a really much more open 2-man game over here because we circle the defense over here just one time. Just because that one back door and that one fill and that one circle. All right? That's how Princeton's X's and O's manipulate defenses. All right? We shift them left, we shift them right, we shift them north, we shift them south. All right? And that helps us keep them occupied at a higher level so that we can get more stuff over here. All right? The last one in the point series. Yeah, so this way. Hit the 5, down the middle. Right? We used to call this under because we would always go under the 5. But basically, we go down the middle. We're going to go, I like setting down screens here. Now, there's a ton of stuff you can do with down the middle. Down the middle looks completely different from point, screen away, and point over the top. So when you're teaching these, I would stick with one of the 3 until they get really, really good at that one, then teach the next one. I usually always choose point, screen away first because I usually always run chin at the high school level. It's kind of funny. It's like chin, you think your player's like the most boring one. All of my guards, even my best player, one of my best offensive players I ever coached, were like, and then I was like, and you guys don't have to run chin if you don't want to. Get into this over here. I was like, yeah, but he's like, but coach, chin's the one that always works. That was my best player, my best scorer, my 18-point game kid. It's like, yeah, coach, but chin's the one that works. That's the one they want to get into. But anyway, point down the middle. We're going to get under here. You can juke here, or you can just get here, turn the corner, come off of this down screen. 5-man. Now what you could do, you could leave this kid in the post. You could ball screen and roll and twist. Okay, but just let me just simplify this for you to actually, this is the modification I would make for coach who wants to run all 3. Or maybe you don't like point, screen away, but you like the unbalancing of the floor. Maybe you like what I just showed you. So what I would do is I might down screen for the 1, let the 1 come off of this, 5 hit the 1, and I'm going to down screen, boom, and keep going. And then my 4 and 3, we're going to get lane line, foul line, corner, ball screen and roll, boom, ball screen and roll, back cut, lift. We didn't have the roll, we hit the 3, 5-man comes back up, sets the drift, we circle the D over here, and actually I've never actually taught it that way before. That's the first time I've ever taught point down the middle that way. So I just turned point down in the middle to finish the exact same way as point over the top does. Okay, but you get there different ways. And I'm telling you, the players on the court guarding your players are like, what? No, that's not what that other thing was. That's completely different. And then you catch them, you run point over the top 5 times in a row, like, oh, we know exactly what they're doing. You run point down the middle 1 time, and it gets into the same thing, and that's when they mess up. They're like, oh man, I didn't see that coming. But it was the same thing. So one of the ways to simplify this offense, when you're actually putting it all together, is to get to the same thing multiple different ways. That's one way to simplify the offense. So you don't have to run it like Air Force does. You don't have to run it like Princeton does. You don't have to run it like Northwestern did. Okay, I made my offense run exactly like Air Force's. I went to the Air Force Academy. I watched them for 7 days. I've been watching their film for 5 years before I even became a head coach. And I installed the offense exactly to do everything that they did. I did everything. It was so fun for me in practice. So much fun. Games, not so much. I'm like, why did we install this offense? We're not running 50% of it. Okay, we could have gotten so much better at some of the core stuff. And if I would have more strategically put pieces together that fit well and that came to natural ends in the same way that other series did, we would have been 10 times, 20 times more efficient. Okay, and again, remember, when I was a head coach, I was 25 years old. All right, now I'm 42. All right, so there's a lot of there's a lot of like, man, I wish I could go back and smack some sense into that kid. All right, so I'm trying to help you guys avoid some of those landmines. All right, last one, the Open Series. For expedition reasons, I'm not going to go into how we enter the Open Series. There's multiple ways you can do it. Because it depends on what you're running. If you're running the chin series, off of a chin drift is the easiest way to get in the Open Series, but you can get into it directly. You can get it out of low post. You can get into open out of point down the middle, point screen. There's all kinds of ways. Just you have to modify different things to get to certain ways, and you can get in the Open Series out of so many different ways. The point is, once you're here, all right, ball's in the middle. If this is a 5 that can dribble, pass, and shoot, you got to get here. Jim Burson, again, going back to him at Muskingum, he calls this the garden spot when you're in the Open Series, because once you get here, man, things start growing. All right, you start getting back doors, you start getting threes, you get anything you want because there's no help side defense. There's nothing. 0. All right, now, again, this is something I really emphasize on the court. I'll just say one more time. You're going to dribble at to get a back cut. You're going to dribble at to get a handoff. Or what Princeton guys will say, hey, dribble at and go back door. Dribble at and come and get it. They'll say come. They won't say handoff. They'll say come and get it. That's what I use. But it's a DHO, dribble handoff. That's the internet slang. When R5, and I do not want to ever dribble at my teammate, ever. Drive the elbow, drive the elbow, drive the elbow. Juke right, rip it through and drive the elbow. Boom, drive the elbow. All right? And then what we want to do here is, the first thing I'm always going to teach is the back door. So we're going to go back door as hard as we possibly can. Now, the concept that I like the most for me, and I'm consistent with this, I always do this. I will do the other thing, but I always do this so that I'm throwing fastballs. If I don't have a fastball, I can never set up a changeup. All right, so every time we go backdoor, anytime we ever in the offense, ever dribble a guard who is on the wing backdoor, they always stop and then return to the post. This one's going to lift. This one's going to return to the post. Every time you dribble a guard backdoor from the wing, they return to the post. All right. Now, if you screen a guard backdoor on the wing, like the point series, they go all the way through, right? But that was initiated by a screen. This was initiated by a dribble. It doesn't matter if it's a big or if it's a guard. We dribble that kid backdoor. They go backdoor. They return to the post. All right. That is a staple in what I do at the core way. Now, then what happens is we come back 20 times in the fourth quarter. I'm like, now I want to ISO it. So I'm going to say, hey, let's go open, but let's clear it. And when I say clear it, this kid goes through, and now we hit here, and now we've emptied out half of the court, right? So many cool things you can do after that. I just go back door, and I'm like, oh, that looks like something we just did with the point series. But anyway, we're going to go back door, return to the post, hit this kid. Okay? Now, again, once you get here, again, you can do Oh, there's so many things you can do. Old school Princeton would hit there. This kid would take a step back. They would UCLA. They would pop. They would hit that. They would look here. They would hit this one. They would flare on the backside. You could do that. All right. You could. Something that I teach the most is I would ball screen, roll. I would flare on the backside. Once we choose a side, once the 5-man chooses a side, we're going lane line, foul line over here. That's where, and we're getting right on the 3-point line. But the 5-man's hit the floor. Now the 5-man's ball screening. The 1-man went back door. They're returning to the post. Coming off, we're going to ball screen. We're going to flare on the backside. Or this is actually more of a flare, less of a drift. And when we roll, our 1's going to twist. So we're attacking here. 5-man's rolling. 1-man's twisting. If they both go with the 1, boom, I got the 5. If they both go with the 5, boom, I can turn around and snap it to the 1 for a shot. Okay, now let me show you something real cool. 5-man rolled, come back to the ball. 4-man hit the wing, cut through. 2-man's here, 3-man's here, 1-man's here. What are we in? Low post. So, depending on which series you're running, I would say, hey, look, if you want to run the open series, but you got a 5-man that's good in the low post as well as the perimeter, you got one of those kids, those special kids, that most of us don't ever get, I would run low post and open, back door. You run those 2 series, boom, now I throw the ball here, and boom, we back up, we circle the D, and then we go to the corner, and then we, and then you do all this other stuff. And hey, now you just run 2 series together, right? Okay, I'm going down a rabbit hole, all right? Open series. All right? Juke right, drive left. Walk in a straight line. Now, you can either stand judiciously, stand, boom, and then back cut, all right? Or sometimes, if your kid's like packing it in a little bit, Coach, how do you run Princeton against a pack line? Well, it's exactly what I do. If he's in a pack line, I'm going to start walking in a straight line. I'm not going to V-cut to come in here and get a handoff. I'm going to walk in a straight line. I don't care how they guard me. I want the defense to make a decision on how they're going to guard me. That's all I want. And I want to see how they're guarding me. That's all I want. I want the defense to make a decision, and I want to make sure that I see it so that I can understand what they're doing so I know to go back door to come get it. If I'm walking here and they decide to go underneath, boom, I'm going to step up here and I'm going to get a handoff. They go underneath, I'm getting a handoff. If I'm walking to it and they try to come up here, boom, I'm going to juke here and go back door. All right, that's how we try to manipulate that defense a little bit on a one-on-one, 2-on-2 situation. I come get a handoff. My 5-man hands me the ball, sets the screen. So it's handoff, boom, screen. Handoff, screen. All right, hand it off here. Now, there's multiple things you could do. You could have these kids. Once we choose a side, if I want to stay consistent to what I just said, because there's multiple things you can do here. Multiple things. All right. Walk up lane line. As soon as I get the handoff, boom, I got a shot here. Boom, I've got a flare on the backside. Okay, you can have that. And let's say I hit the 4-man here. I mean, from there, what I would probably do is if I hit the 4-man there, we're getting a shot, we're driving, and we're just playing. That's probably what I would do. If you wanted to say, hey, we have to be so strict with our content. I mean, if I just wanted to say, hey, we're playing. Now once we get here, okay, now just go play. Go be your players. You want to play up tempo. I say, hey, just catch it, shot, boom, drive, kick it to the corner, pop out here. Just make it, just go play, make something happen. If you wanted to be so strict, you could have your 2-man, after they screen here, continue to screen for the 5. 5-man can come down here. 3-man can cut, 2-man can pop, and then boom, you're back in a low post. You can do that too. There's so many things you can do. So that's it. That's low post, chin, point, and open. All right, and at the most core thing, but you see me start doing this, and I'm like, okay, well, you could do this, and you could do this. And I've done 2 things on the board already that I've actually never done before, because I'm like, oh, that looks like this, but I try to stay consistent. So anyway, do you guys have any questions? We've gone for an hour 20. I plan on only going an hour. Hopefully, I broke down the core 4 series. You're like, man, low post makes so much sense now. Man, point series makes so much sense. I understand now if I'm running point over the top or point screen away, I can modify this to make these 2 work. Oh, I know point screen away and chin are the 2 that work well together. Hey, the open series, going back door, man, that's just like running, it gets in the low post just a different way. So how can we go low? How can we know how to go open and low post? How can we go low post into open? And just now we can run a continuity with 2 series. Now you're starting to run Princeton. Okay, then you figure out, hey, now I want to pull in a little bit of point series. But which point series do we run with open and low post? Well, what's gonna be the easiest way we can get into open out of point? Is it point down the middle? Is it point over the top? Point screen away, because we get off that chin drift, right? Boom. We get off that chin drift. We get right back into open. Now we can go open back door. We can get back in the low post, right? And if the low post isn't open, we can snap at the point, get right back into point screen away. And now you've got 3 series. And now you're running Princeton. Coach Sarge will say, I'm sure you'll get to this, but how is circling the defense or Princeton screens negated by switching defense? Yeah, what Princeton coaches will say, that's a great question. What Princeton's will say, hey, if you want to switch, because you might have mismatches. So what they'll say, if they switch on a back door, now you got your guard on your big or your big on your guard. If you've got a guard on the perimeter with the ball and the big switch on to him, we'll spread it out. We'll let that kid make a move and go play. If you've got the big in the low post and the guard switch on him down there, we're gonna spread them out, ISO, get in our low post positions and try to ISO our big in the low post. But if you're like circling the D and they're switching that, I would say if you're seeing that, that's kind of like a matchup. Just keep running your man against that stuff. They will break down. There's going to be it's hard enough to chase and guard Princeton, because here's the thing about and I love the matchup zone. I teach the matchup zone. I love it. I ran it for 10 to 12 games the last year I was a head coach, and it was the biggest turnaround of any season that I've ever. We went like 7-3, and then we went 3-7 the first 10 games. We went like 7-3 the last 10 games when we switched, fully committed to the matchup. For whatever reason, our players bought into it. We coached our ass off. It worked really well. But the problem with the matchup zone compared to a man-to-man, everyone has an individual responsibility. A matchup zone keeps the man-to-man responsibility if you do it the way that we did it. A matchup zone where you're switching cutters, because most coaches will get lazy and they won't run a matchup, but they'll run a switching man-to-man. They'll switch interchanges. They'll switch screens, handoffs, ball screens, down screens, back screens, they'll switch all of that. But if there's a cutter going through, they won't switch that. Right? That's not a matchup zone. That's not a matchup. That's a switching man-to-man. A matchup zone, it's basically you're also passing off cutters. Okay, so if you're seeing teams pass off cutters when you go back door and circle the D, and they're just letting them go through, I would just continue to run your man until you get to screening situations because eventually, even if they're let me just do it. You asked the question, let me just do it. So I want to see the defense on it too. So here we go. So the question is, hey, what happens if you're circling the D and they're just switching everything? Well, the back cut alone, even if they're switching it, if they do it correctly, what happens is if you go back door, even if they're going to switch it, this one should, the way that I teach it, we should talk it, touch it, switch it. But when this one's coming down, this one's coming up. So we'll be able to move the ball to the next player, right, and get into the next part of your offense. So if we were actually throwing it from here to here, we'd be going from low to point. Okay, and then they would come through and they would pop up and they would just stay, and they would stay in this position. Is kind of what you're saying when they switch that. This is what happens once your players learn the Princeton offense the way that we coach it, the way that we install it. What I discovered. I shouldn't say what you discovered, but what I discovered was our defensive sessions got really freaking good in the season, because we would do all for 4 weeks preparing for our season. It was nothing but 4-on-4 shell, man-to-man, guarding all the generic stuff. And then every time we had a team come up, we had a scouting report. We scouted like crazy. We got film. We went and saw each team 2-3 times. I called coaches. Hey, what did they run against you? And we would do all of that. We would have a really solid playbook. And my shell sessions became we're running what the opposing. My guys could run any offense. We say, hey, they're running this. Once we did it, it was like they've never done it before, but they're running the other team's offense. Sometimes they'd run it better than some teams would. Our second group when we're running their offense. But what your players are going to do is they're going to instinctively start to figure things out. Because for your players to learn the Princeton, they don't have to be high IQ players. But through the repetition and through the problem solving and the communication that you have to run Princeton, and we push that stuff every day, just by doing that, you're going to say, hey, if they're going to touch a switch it and they're going to come down with us, we're going to be able to run our offense. Okay, but if they're like really cheating, hey, hey, if they're getting lazy, hey, cutter, and this kid stays here, and this one goes back door, say, hey, I got him, and this is rotating up, and they're denying that one. I'm gonna tell this kid, hey, look, if they're meeting you here, boom, just pop back to the ball like this, throw it here, and then 5-man turn and pin, and just play a little bit. No, we might have to call a timeout. We have to break that down. Maybe you see that in the scout. Hey, these guys are gonna switch cutters. Let's turn their man-to-man switching defense into a zone just by, hey, just flash the ball. Just do what makes sense. Flash the ball, catch it here, boom, catch and rip it, boom, drive it, and this one, because, and the defense, it'll break down. Okay? Hopefully that helps a little bit. That's something that, you have, if your players are mechanical, they'll never figure that out. If we teach our players, if we coach our players to be problem solvers, right, they'll figure that out. And that won't be too hard to beat. So it's kind of one of those things. I was like, a player come up to me, ask a question. I was like, I thank you for asking the question. I can answer that for you. Hey, go talk to Connor over there, because Connor, he's a senior. He's seen this. I could see in his eyes that he knew exactly why you messed up. Go ask Connor. And I'll make my other teammate, hey, this is why. Do this instead, because you see. And now my players are coaching my players. They're problem solving on their own. And then if my players are going to each other, this is what we say: player-led teams are always better than coach-led teams. So if players are, we can teach them how and coach them how to solve problems on their own. They'll figure stuff like that out real easy. They will learn how to abandon the structure when it's time to abandon the structure. They'll know when to use the structure when it's time to use the structure. That's a great question. All right. Okay. Awesome. Very good. All right, everyone on YouTube watching the challenge, I really appreciate you guys being here. Tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. Tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, we are going to be talking installation. Tomorrow we're going to be how do we install so we've done strategy. Now we've done the X's and O's. Now how do you actually install it? All right. And the way that I was taught as a player, the way that I was taught as a coach, as a young coach, was whole part whole. All right. John Wooden, whole part whole. Right? I mean, he was like one of the biggest proponents. Everyone teaches whole part whole because of John Wooden. Okay. I don't know if I actually got this from watching Princeton film or watching Richmond practice or Air Force practice, because I never got to see them start to finish. But I learned this this is something that I learned on my own, trial and error. And I really didn't get it until year 3 and year 4. Year 3, I was getting there. Year 4, I got it. And then once I started working with coaches, I feel like I took it up a notch. It's even. So now that I've been doing clinics, now that I've been doing installation camps for coaches where I actually come and install we design the offense together, design the strategy together, and I come and install it for you over 2 days. Day 3, you could go play a game. But what I learned was this new way of installing the offense, I think works better for every offense, but especially Princeton. I would never recommend anyone install the Princeton offense other than a way that we're doing tomorrow. So that's day 3. So really appreciate you guys being here. If you're a VIP, if you guys are in Zoom, we're going to take a 5-minute break. If you're not VIP yet, I think I'll send you guys an email. Tomorrow's going to be the last day to become VIP, because tomorrow night I've got something special. But for $47, you guys can actually become VIP for this challenge. You can also get a clinic ticket. We're having a coaching clinic October 14th and 15th. And we'll talk about this a lot more tomorrow, just for $47. Usually a regular price is $247 because it's just me. We don't have 15 coaches. It's just me for 12 hours, 14 hours on the court over 2 or 3 days. It's going to be 2 days this fall, breaking down how we install the offense, how we put everything together, all the little stuff on the court. So I'll send you guys an email tomorrow morning, so check that out if you guys are interested. If not, totally cool. But that's what's going on. So VIP, hang in there on the Zoom. So I'm gonna kill the YouTube, take a 5-minute break, grab a drink. We'll come back on Zoom, and we're gonna actually be talking about how do you take these 4 core series, how do you speed them up, how do you slow them down, how do you grind it out, and then how do you spread them out. Okay, so you can play at different tempos, different styles, different strategies, and how we would approach that with each one of these series. Okay, and then tomorrow's VIP session is going to be how do you take these? We'll talk about installation a little bit. We're going to talk installation through phasing from one series to another. Right? How do you go from low post to chin? How do you go from chin to open? We're going to talk about that in tomorrow's VP session after the installation general session. All right, coaches on YouTube, thanks. We will see you guys tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Coaches on Zoom and VIP, hang on there. I'll be there with you in a couple minutes. Thanks, Coach.